Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Dave. This is Blindman Outdoors, and on today's episode, we're gonna go through the Nissan Frontier. The Frontier is my adventure truck. It's one that I've been driving for the last few years. It has been featured on this channel more times than I can count, and today we're gonna go into it top to bottom. We've made a considerable amount of changes to this truck just over the last year. However, the truck itself has been being built over the last 3 years, predominantly through savings and choosing the right gear for the right time. So if you're looking for a video that'll help you decide what gear you're gonna pick for your next adventure vehicle, this is the one for you. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and let's get into it.
Hi, my name's Dave, and I've spent most of my life outdoors here in Canada's Western Frontier. I believe one thing to be true: outside is therapy. It's where we both reconnect and disconnect. I hope you'll come with me as we build, explore, and repeat.
Okay, so obviously when picking an adventure truck, you wanna make sure that you're picking something that you're actually gonna enjoy driving. Typically, people will actually get out of their vehicles and into a new vehicle once every 3 to 4 years. And if you're looking for a vehicle that's gonna last you a long time and one that's gonna help you get out and explore the wild places, you're gonna want one that's fun to drive, that's reliable, and most importantly, will get you home at the end of the day. If you guys have any questions, make sure you drop them in the comments. That's how we're gonna see them, and that's how I'm gonna respond to them. Now, typically for walk-around videos, people go the whole mile and detail it and clean it and make it look absolutely pristine for the video. We're not gonna do that. You guys are gonna see this truck is exactly how it's used every time without fail. I don't know, maybe it's okay just to show things how you actually have them. So my truck is a dedicated adventure truck. It's also my daily driver. I work in an industry that allows me to do this full time. So don't take everything I'm gonna say here as the divine metric of everything that you need to do. I drive a 2012 Nissan Frontier SV 4x4 with the off-road package. Now the off-road package essentially gets you a bit of a boost in suspension, some graphics package, so you get the off-road decals, and then you also end up getting some goodies on the inside like descent control and obviously 4 high and 4 low. The biggest difference out of a Nissan Frontier with the SV 4x4 off-road edition versus the Pro 4X is going to be a locker. So the Pro 4X does come with a rear locker from the factory. It's an e-locker, whereas the SV Frontier that you're gonna see here today does not have a locker from factory. There are many options that you can choose from for a locker. However, we have opted out of a locker. So far, everything that we've gone through with this truck has not required us to have a locker. There is a couple of times where we probably would have used one just to get a little bit more traction in some of the grittier places that we've taken it. The truck right now has about 217,000 miles on it. So we're pushing up to that 300,000 kilometer number, which is traditionally the number that you're gonna get to when things start to wear down faster and you might wanna consider an engine rebuild kit. So underneath the truck, we are covered by a full aluminum skid plate, everything except for the gas tank. We're not too concerned about the gas tank. We have quite a bit of lift on the back, so we don't really consider that to be much of a hazard, but it is something we probably will look at doing in the future. However, right now, we've got a steel skid plate coming down from the bumper to cover the radiator. We've got an engine and engine pan skid plate to cover those. We've got the cross member and the transfer case skid plate. We did install those before we did anything else. It was one of the first things we did because I do value protection almost more than anything else because it's really gonna extend the life of your vehicle. The skid plates themselves are extremely light. And so far they do have a little bit of damage on them, but we've been pretty careful about where we're putting our truck lately. It gives you a great deal of confidence off-road, especially when you're venturing into places that maybe you haven't been before and you're not too sure what to expect from the terrain. Just gives you that little bit of extra confidence knowing that if something were to happen, if you did get a rock or a tree branch or something like that, just the wrong place at the wrong time, then you have that added protection. For brakes and tires, so right now we're running just stock OEM calipers, but we do have drilled and slotted rotors. And that's just to help dissipate that heat, especially if you're coming down on big declines. Heat is the biggest enemy out of any brake system. If your brakes can't dissipate heat, then they're gonna get really, really spongy. It could be pretty hairy coming down some of those steep declines, depending on where you're going. Okay, now the question we get asked probably more than anything else is, what are we running for a suspension kit? We started with just stock suspension with a bit of a budget boost. Since then, we've actually moved away from that. We've now gone to a full Bilstein 5100 kit all the way around, custom aluminum spacers in the back to give that block, basically a block lift on the back. And we've also added a set of shackles. On the front, we're running the 5100 Bilsteins as well, but we do have a custom spring rate, and we've added a 2.5-inch high top to that, again, to give it a bit of a boost. And then on top of that, we have the classic SPC upper control arms, which so far have been great for us. There are some people that are experiencing some issues with their SPCs. So far for us, our upper control arms have been performing extremely well. Considering before we had almost a 3-inch lift on stock upper control arms, we had little to no articulation, and the truck would handle like a lumber wagon. It still did most of the things we wanted it to, but it was very difficult on the vehicle, and eventually it did cause us to have to replace all of our bushings and bearings on the front end of the truck, because that upper control arm was sitting at such a steep angle that we couldn't actually align the truck properly, which means that our tire wear was pretty bad. And like I said, all those bearings and bushings were under way more stress than they were needed to be. By putting those upper control arms, we were able to correct the alignment so that the upper control arms could sit at the proper angle, and the toe and the camber of the tires could actually be adjusted properly. What that also did is gave us way more articulation on and off road. So now there is a little bit more of body roll to it. It's not as rigid and structured as it used to be, but that really does let us keep our tires on the ground. If you're considering something like a Titan swap or a long travel kit, essentially what that is it allows your suspension to travel longer, a longer distance to stay on the ground. Remember, when you're off-roading, traction is your best friend, and you get the best traction by keeping all 4 tires in contact with the dirt or gravel, depending on where you're going. And so your goal should be to keep all 4 tires on the ground as much as possible. And that's how you get those crazy cool articulating shots. And that's how it's done. You have a lot of articulation in your suspension, and you want to be able to use as much of it as you possibly can. What am I running for wheels and tire? I really like having a small wheel and a big tire. I like being able to lower my tire pressures quite a bit when I have to, and having more tire allows me to drop them even more. So we're running on 16-inch 6-lug American Outlaw buckshots that have been powder coated in a triple bronze finish, and then those are wrapped in 33-inch Toyo Open Country mud terrains. I am a massive fan of the Toyo MTs. I have used them now for the last 5 to 6 years, I think, and so far I'm blown away and impressed by these tires. Right now we're sitting at around 60% tread life left, so we're probably going to be swapping these guys out before winter. However, so far they've performed extremely well, and we're trying to get as much life out of our trucks and our parts as possible. And they're also a 10-ply tire. So what that means is that it's a very strong sidewall. The sidewall of the tire is very rigid. And what that lets me do is drop the pressures in my tires a lot more than normally without deforming the tire itself too much, so that if I have to lower my tire pressures and get a little bit more traction in deep snow or mud or anything like that, it's less likely to pop a bead, and therefore less likely to have to stop on the trail and do a trail side repair, which does happen, but we try to limit that as much as possible. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, let's talk about the exterior of the truck. A very popular modification that a lot of people are making to their vehicles now is vinyl wrapping. Now, vinyl wrapping does actually a lot of good things for your vehicle. One, it kind of protects the paint if you're going to be driving off-road in really dense, bushy areas. It's going to protect your paint from getting scratched. It's also going to protect your paint from sun damage or fading over time. And it just makes it look really cool. Our wrap was made by TNT Customs in Red Deer, Alberta, and is sporting the logos for both Yucatan Campers and the AOA Expo. And then it also has a complete topographical theme going on it, which is representative of some of the places that we explore here in Alberta. So I really, really do like the vinyl wrap. I think it's probably one of the favorite things I've done last year. And heck, it looks really good. Aside from that, on the exterior, we've also got a quarter panel Line-X spray. So we've gone and Line-X the entire rocker panels of the truck, as well as around all the fender wells as well. That just kind of helps with door dings and anything that's like brutally rough on paint, like long-term gravel road travel and stuff like that. It really just helps protect the body of the vehicle to inhibit rust as much as possible. I get a lot of compliments on it. A lot of people are asking me where to get it done. Just call Line-X. Line-X knows exactly what they're doing, and it's so much better than the cheap DIY Rhino liner that you can do at home. They can coat this stuff in an egg and drop it from a skyscraper, and the egg doesn't break. So the product really does speak for itself. Now, continuing on with sort of the armor theme, following those skid plates, we have front and rear steel bumpers. These steel bumpers are actually provided by Coastal Off-Road. They make a really cool product. They basically cut all the shapes that you're going to need to build the bumper yourself and ship it to your door, and then you assemble it and weld it and paint it, saving you quite a bit of money. The direction we went with our bumpers didn't really save us a lot of money because we did end up getting the kit and then giving it to a professional to weld, and then coated it with a high quality wrinkle black texture, which kind of just keeps the rust from developing. And despite all the rock damage and trail damage that you're going to get, these things have looked great from beginning, and they still look great today. The front bumper is going on about 2.5 years now, and the rear bumper is going on about 9 months. So the rear bumper is one of the things that we only did recently, and so far I'm really impressed with it. I have wanted for a long time to take the spare tire out from the bottom of the truck and put it somewhere where it's not going to drag and not have it on the roof. And the rear bumper did so much by just removing that tire and putting it on the back. But it is a high clearance kit. So both the front and the rear bumper get you an absolutely insane amount of descent and approach angle that you normally would not have out of a stock Frontier. A stock Nissan Frontier has probably the worst front and rear bumper package ever. It just digs and digs and digs and basically becomes a snowplow. Inside that front bumper, we've got a couple of goodies. So we've got our DIY onboard air system that sits just behind the grill. And then below that, we've got our Smitty-built 10,000-pound XR20 winch, which has wireless controls and amphibious technology, which basically means I can submerge this truck and still access the winch and use it if need be. As far as lighting goes on that bumper, we have a set of rigid cubes that are actually set into the bumper itself. And then on top of that, we've got a 20-inch Rigid Industries single row dual flood and spot light bar combo. I have wired the fog lights up to the factory switches on the turn signal indicator on the truck, which allows me to just turn the fog lights on like I normally would without having to add a new switch. But the light bar, the air compressor, and the other accessories are all run through an S-Pod. Okay, as far as engine and transmission and gearing goes, it's all stock. The engine is completely stock except for maybe a K&N air filter and the S-Pod system that's running underneath the hood itself. It's a stock 4-liter V6. It's absolutely a pig on fuel, and we have a 450-pound camper on it, which makes it even worse on fuel. But we don't build these to make them fuel efficient. We build them to get us to cool places, and sometimes you just got to make do with the cost of fuel. Okay, so now let's talk about what's actually on the inside of the truck. So as far as the interior goes, most of the customizations that we've done have been really inexpensive and things that we've actually made ourselves, with exception to a couple of things. Specifically for like comms and mapping, so that you're not fumbling for stuff all the time. And more importantly, when the road starts getting really, really rough and the trail starts to really do some jostling around inside the cab, these things stay put. They don't drop down, they don't fall. You're not trying to reach and grab your phone to watch your map. None of that happens. So I would even consider these a bit of a safety feature, and you're gonna want at least a couple of them. They're not very expensive. They're $30 to $40 for a kit, aside from some of the other brands, which are a little bit more expensive. Underneath of the cubby area is where we placed our S-Pod system. So we have a 6 rocker switch S-Pod system in there right now. What that is running is our front light bar, our DIY onboard air system that sits inside of our grill. It also runs an accessory 12-volt plug that we've wired to the back of the truck because the Nissan Frontier does not come with one from the factory. And then sometimes we actually pull the fridge out of the camper, and for the longest time, the fridge would actually run behind the driver's seat in my truck, and that plug is also controlled by an S-Pod switch as well. Right, so I mean, we've also got some pretty standard stuff. We got my patch collection up on the roof, but the most obvious feature is our rear seat delete. It was really easy to make, and so far it's lasted a really long time. Keeps things out of the way, and there's two little cubbies on the bottom that I can open up and access stuff. Inside of those two cubbies, I have basically all the tools that I might need to do some trail repairs or anything like that. And also all of my recovery gear sits in there as well. Shout out to Freedom Recovery Gear. They make some absolutely incredible stuff, and it's all handmade by Richard and his team. I have had to use the synthetic winch line on the truck already, and so far I'm really impressed with it. Continuing on from the inside and the back seat, we've got a Blindman Overland Nissan Frontier rear seat mole panel. So this mole panel covers the entire rear window of the truck. It bolts into the factory bolt holes of your Frontier, and it just lets you store a whole bunch of stuff on the back of the wall of the Frontier that you don't necessarily want hanging out there. Right now I've got like some emergency kits, I've got my fire pit back there, I've got my water port back there, my bush pike from Maple Made, which is basically my trail saw, a shovel, some gloves, and a backpack. And all that stuff stays up there on the wall. No matter how bad the trail gets, nothing ever falls down. And it just keeps that space open, like I said, for my dog, so that he can have a place to sit. And then inside there, I also have a Pelican case that I keep in there that's just strapped down. Inside there, I usually keep a toilet or something. It's things that I don't need to grab all the time, but I want covered or kept away. So that's what's in the inside of the truck. Okay, so now for the most obvious thing that sits on this pickup truck, and that is the Yucapac camper. The Yucapac camper is built right here by hand at Blindman Overland in Lacombe, Alberta. It's an ultralight touring camper that's made out of 100% aluminum. It's a Blindman Overland product, and it was Canada's first adventure camper of its kind that was built right here. Obviously, clearly I'm biased, but I absolutely love the Yucapac camper, and so far everybody that's gotten one have loved it as well. I'm actually staring at one right behind you here for a 6-foot Tacoma and another one for a Chevy Colorado. It features a nice broad cabinet that sits across the back end of the camper that lets me keep all of my camping stuff inside of that cabinet. That was basically how I ran my camper, with a small drawer system that was just built by me for a long time. But we have recently got ourselves a fart system. A fart system is built by Al in Calgary at Fart Systems. It's basically a habitat system that lets you pair it with either a truck canopy. He's also got some really cool rear seat deletes as well for 4Runners. And it just gives you a whole bunch of space that you can keep all your kitchen stuff, all your cooking stuff. You have a pantry as well that's accessible on the inside if the drawers are all closed up, so I can still get my coffee and something like that in the morning if I want to make coffee inside before I get it. And then another really cool thing that it offers is it's got a gun and rod locker on the side of it, as well as a small locker at the very back underneath the cabinet, where I can just store stuff that I'm not going to need all the time. So the built-in cabinet essentially lets you use your camper as a traditional canopy without having to store a whole bunch of totes and stuff inside your camper. It lets you keep all your camping gear inside the cabinet and all your bed space available for whatever you want to use. So a lot of our customers will actually end up using it like a rooftop tent in a canopy, and then use the canopy underneath as like a garage. They can keep their mountain bikes or their toys back there so that people can't see them. The way that I use it is more of a camper. So with the fart system that I've got in there, it gives me a nice bench that I can sit on. It gives me a space where I can work if I'm working outdoors. And more or less, it just makes it a more livable space inside. This one's fully insulated. It comes with our power management system, a full solar kit. The fridge is back there as well, which is wired directly into the camper. And the camper is running under its own power, so it's not tied into the truck at all. So you can charge it via the 110 plug that sits on the outside of the camper, or you can charge it via solar. I'm running just an AGM deep cycle battery in there. I'm going to be switching to lithium here pretty quick. We're just trying to figure out which battery we want to go with within our campers and what serves the best role, or what serves the best purpose for what we do. The mole panels hold a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be grabbing if I'm going for a hike. I've got some trekking poles on there. I've got another first aid kit on there. My hatchet's on there. On the back door, I'm able to store my axe and all that. But on the inside of the cabinet, behind the table, is where I got my battery. And since putting in the fart system, I don't actually own a lot of stuff. Everything that I have serves a purpose. And between the rear seat delete on the truck and the cabinet in the camper, the fart system basically just holds the kitchen. It holds the kitchen, and that's more or less it, and the fishing rods, I guess, as well. Up top, we have a 3-inch medium density mattress that's paired in a nice soft touch material so that if you don't have bed sheets, you don't necessarily need them. The top lifts up real nice. We've also paired that with a roof rack so I can throw a kayak up there or anything else that I need to carry out for whatever type of adventure I'm going on. A couple of things that I picked up this year that I'm going to highlight that I really enjoy and that I've used quite a bit. One is my adventure trail gear bag on the back tire. Also serves as the mounting spot for my traction board. So my traction boards just sit behind my tire, between the tire and the bag. It keeps everything real tight on there, as well as bringing that spare tire out from underneath and on the back. All of these things has basically made using my truck specifically for the adventures that I go on a lot more enjoyable. I had to think about and worry about a lot less than I did before. So all in all, the Nissan Frontier is probably the most underrated platform for this style of build out there. There are a lot of awesome content creators right now that have built really cool Nissan Frontiers, some with campers, some without campers. It all comes down to what you need out of your vehicle. If it's just a Kia Sorento with a tent and maybe a seat delete so that you can keep some of your gear in there full time, then hey, so be it. We do kind of put our truck in a lot of weird places and we do need a lot of gear to make sure that we can get home safely. And I spend a considerable amount of time in this thing. This thing has essentially become my home away from home. Let's put it at $40,000. So this is a $40,000 overland adventure truck. If you guys have any questions at all, or you want to go into further detail on some of the gear that we carry, or what my thoughts are on certain brands, or why I went this direction versus that direction, just drop them down there in the comments. It's the easiest way for me to see them, and then I can interact with you guys and answer your questions as they come. But that's it, guys. That's our 2012 Nissan Frontier adventure truck build, overland build, whatever you want to call it. So that is our 2023 Walkaround.
All right, guys, that's going to do it. That's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for joining me on this walk-around video. We tend to do this about once a year where we just kind of go through what's on the truck. And I really wanted to share this with you guys. So thanks so much for being here. I appreciate you. If you guys have any other questions, be sure to leave them in the comments. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe to this channel. And most importantly, live free and be wild. We'll see you guys on the next one.